A very busy first week, hasn't it been, for President Joe Biden, the new Commander-in-Chief, rolling back the Trump agenda with a cavalcade of executive orders. And the impeachment push against the former president continues too in the US Senate. Let's bring in my international panel now. Sky News host of Bernardi, Corey Bernardi in Adelaide. That's a news show. Looking forward to that one. And co-host of Outsiders, opinion editor at the Daily Telegraph too, an all-round good man and good foodie, James Morrow in Sydney. James, last night we had a close look at one of those executive orders. You know, he signed a battery of them there, but when you look at the detail, it's pretty scary. The one we looked at last night regarding US schools now mandates that if you pick up federal funding, you must allow boys identifying as girls onto girls' sporting teams. A whole raft of others, national security, military, more. What's your take on his first week in the Oval Office?
Well, Peter, the best we can say for it is there have been no mean tweets. But that's pretty much as far as I would go in giving Biden any credit. You know, we've had 31 executive orders come out in the first few hours, essentially, of this administration from a guy who back in October said that executive orders were no way to govern. But these orders cover all sorts of things. You mentioned the schools, and basically the implication of this is this going to be the end of the death of women and girls sports in high schools and colleges around the United States? So that's a big problem. But also the Keystone Pipeline gone, thousands of workers out of their employment that had, and also a big blow to American energy independence, North American energy independence. You've seen all sorts of other things happen, too. Immigration wound back. Enforcement is basically not going to exist along that southern border of the United States, as per Joe Biden's executive orders. Meanwhile, you've got Jen Psaki, the spokeswoman for the White House now, who's all very politically correct. And when she was asked about stock market gyrations today, said, well, can I remind you that we've got the first female Treasury Secretary now? And you've got at the same time Taiwan being buzzed by Chinese jets. So I'm not particularly optimistic that the Biden administration has a complete and full handle on what's going on right now, Peter.
You are so right to remind me about that pipeline. I've got some very good political mates in Canada. It's a huge issue in Canada, obviously. I'm going to reach out to them and see if I can't get them on next week to talk a little bit more about what it means, particularly for US and Canadian finances and energy security. Corey, let's look at the impeachment effort, the second time round from the Democrats. It looks as though it's dead in the water. There won't be enough Republican votes in the Senate to convict him. What's interesting to me is who's advising Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, because this path now, once he's left office, looks to me as if it'll give Trump the sort of martyrdom that he's after. So it seems a bit wrong-headed.
Yes, it is wrong-headed, and it's a stubbornness because they wanted to discredit Donald Trump and hound him out of office so he could never return. And I really think the Democrats' agenda was to hope that Trump would start his own political party, because then that would divide the Republican Party, it would divide the Republican vote, and because of the winner-takes-all strategy that they have in America, it would ensure Democratic rule forever, just in case they can't fix it through the legislative system. And I don't think Trump's going to buy into that. I think he's a bit smarter, and he will stay within the Republican Party. I think the likes of Mitt Romney will go, because he should be in the Democrats. We've had a few of those in the Liberal Party over the years too, Peter.
Haven't we what? Haven't we what?
They've just got to go, and I think that's the opportunity for Trump. He can continue to be involved in politics. The 80-odd million people that voted for him can make a difference through the primary process, and that would be the Democrats' worst nightmare.
I've met John Kerry a few times when I worked in the government. I'll be gracious and say not much more than that. But he's reappeared as the climate envoy for Joe Biden's administration at this virtual UN summit. Now, we're going to hear a lot from him. There's no doubt about that, James. But, as I looked at a lot of those appointments for the first Biden administration, this is really just the third Obama administration, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there's so many retreads. I mean, not just John Kerry, but lots of people all the way down the line. Lots of people who've been cooling their heels around Washington, around that swamp that Donald Trump talked about for the last 4 years, have now basically been rebooted. And not only have they been rebooted, but also all of their failed policies. So we're seeing things, you talk about John Kerry. Well, this is a guy who said, you could never make peace in the Middle East without the Palestinians. And of course, Donald Trump went and did that. Now they're working to essentially divide the Middle East again and once again empower Iran. You know, that's just one aspect. But I really do worry that what they're doing right now is going to make America a less effective nation and the world a more dangerous place.
Corey, how about this today from Jacinda Ardern's Trade Minister, who suggested Australia, well, that we've mishandled our relationship with China, saying relations would be better off if we kowtowed to Beijing.
We have free and frank discussions with them, and I guess that honesty and frankness is something that China appreciates. We certainly do from our side. Look, I can't speak for Australia and the way it runs its diplomatic relationships, but clearly, if they were to, follow us and show respect, I guess a little more diplomacy from time to time and be cautious with wording, then they too hopefully could be in a similar situation.
God, Corey, it sticks in my craw to have New Zealanders tell us that we need to show respect to China. Well, what does that look like?
Well, it means supplicating yourself at the feet of the Chinese emperor. And that's exactly what New Zealand have done. Of course, they've enacted basically a lot of Chinese policies, bigger taxes, less freedoms, this cult of Jacinda Ardernism over there. And I tell you what, I don't want any lectures from them. We get lectures from them when we send their criminals back to them. I mean, they just complain all the time about we send their citizens back to them who break our laws. And they say we shouldn't be able to do that and we've just got to keep supplementing them on their welfare. I would dismiss this immediately and I think stick to your own knitting, my friend.
Yes, and I do agree. They whinge, don't they, when they're here. They're not Australian citizens, but they want all the Australian welfare.